Hello my fellow City Skylines mayors and city building fans, and welcome to a subscriber city showcase of Lakedale by your fellow player from Steam with the nickname Baron von Clems. Not only did he create this city, but he also wrote me a long explanation of it and even recorded it in action, as I don't own all the DLCs he does, so the city wasn't loading perfectly for me. Thanks to his dedication, I can showcase the city in its full glory. Let's start from the idea behind the city, because it is a very unexpected one. Baron von Clems wanted to generate traffic, not avoid it, and create a more realistic looking city. Of course, since this is a game, it has its limits, so it is only possible to generate as much traffic as the game's AI can handle and the game engine support, which is about 16,000 vehicles. This you can see by using the CSL Show More Limits mod. On that subject, I will leave a list of DLCs, mods and assets used in building this city in the description below, as well as links to a playlist of similar city overviews and my other videos about City Skylines. There are 4 objectives this player wanted to achieve in this city. 1. To have city blocks with a mix of RCI. 2. City blocks with only industry, being generic industry, specialized industry or DLC industry. Then to place only a few artery highways inside the city for smart city connections. And number 4, as mentioned in the intro, to have as much traffic as the game could handle. Before I go into more details, I want to mention that you can download the city using the Steam Workshop link in the description below, where you will also find my email address to which you can send your own cities you want me to showcase in videos like this one. Here is an explanation behind some of the layouts of the city's blocks. We start from the fact that Sims in vehicles take the shortest route possible. They don't know or care about any other vehicle on the roads beside theirs. To their eyes and brain, they are all alone in the entire city. So what this player tried to do is to have a road system where each vehicle would travel its minimal time but not get into the way of all the other vehicles who are going to the same place. He achieved this by setting up his zoning inside vertical road layouts so that vehicles would go from the bottom to top, where there is an exit from that zone, and in the middle of the top side. After some testing of this design, he further changed it by splitting the entries and exits in 2. To make it easier for vehicles to drive their individual paths, he made sure to prevent the placement of stop signs and traffic lights. Since the driver AI follows all the rules, even with these off, there was no point in leaving them in, as they only slow down traffic. Also, this game doesn't have traffic accidents, so there's really no downside to doing this. The important thing is that the Sims can drive wherever they want to, but on paths the city's mayor chooses for them in advance, and looking at these zones, it does work out quite well. He did however attempt to have 4 exits for the zone's layout, 1 on each side, and for all of them to lead to the same highway. But because of how the game's AI drivers all want to merge into the highway on the same lane, the only thing achieved was a long string of vehicles trying to get onto the highway at the same time, so that design was scrapped. And this is something every player should do. Experiment with different designs, try out interesting ideas, zone differently, place road layouts in new ways and see what happens. Sometimes you will make a mess, other times something new and useful will come out of it all. Do not be afraid to test out even the most far out ideas. This is what the save and load options are there for. If you would like to see some of my own crazy ideas and concepts, like RCI mixing, the 3 highway design, and the 1 million sim city, or the spiral city, just follow the links up here and in the description below. But let's get back to this city. The idea behind the complete design was that everything above the river would be spread out around the main highway. The riverside would be a place for water tourism and anything else that can be done with that. The city zones where Sims live, work in offices and shop in commercial zones would be placed around the highway, but with industrial zones in between those. The main highway idea stayed true, but multiple industry zones did not. They ended up being much more concentrated in one on each side of the river. There is the DLC industry specialized for oil and agriculture, as well as the post office and some other unique factories from that DLC. But the generic industry is not neglected because it is necessary in production of goods for the shops to have something to sell. These are not quite enough, so there are additional 6,000 goods that are imported from the region. The IT specialized offices are also present and generating goods. There is one commercial zone which is set to work as entertainment for both Sims and tourists. And if you are entertained watching this video, please express your appreciation for the city and my overview of it by hitting that like button and telling me in the comment section which feature of this city you like the most. To power this city, its mayor has chosen wind and solar hybrid turbines placed in the rivers, as well as the regular wind turbines along the shoreline. This is boosted by the power produced in solar power plants placed at several locations inside the city. This is actually more power production than usage, so some of these are even turned off for the time being. They will be used up later, as this is not the final version of the city, and the 200,000 population is just where the city was when Baron von Clems shared it on the Steam workshop. I know that you are interested about the traffic and interchanges in the city, so let's have a closer look at those. The visual feel of them is just fantastic because most of them are placed inside quite thick forests which cover them from all sides and separate them from the city's blocks. This also gives much needed room for traffic to flow instead of packing in tightly between the on and off ramps to zoned parts of the city. The mayor has also made a nice looking volcanic hill nearby, which makes for a beautiful view as you drive over the highways. Before I switch to the traffic view of these highways, I want to show you some very interesting walkway designs which are the staple of the city and give its traffic some serious breathing room from the pedestrians. This one may look rather simple as it crosses just two roads, but these next ones are far more interesting. This one is an example of a squared one which is located on top of a four-way intersection, while this one is a triple square with one of the sides as a slide in between for good measure. This design proves quite good at giving sims alternate routes besides crosswalks and prevents traffic slowing down too often in those street intersections. My personal favorite is the one which spans the river, and there's two of them. They are like pedestrian bridges. Not only is the view fantastic, but the foot traffic is also quite numerous. There are literally hundreds of sims passing through all the time. The second one even has a metro station at its base that connects it to the rest of the city with a fast way for sims to move around. Now if we switch the view to the traffic overlay and look again at the highway interchanges, things are not so nice and neat. They are rather more spaghetti-like. There are the interchanges which are T-shaped, so they are easy to untangle, but then there are the four ways. These are quite hard to follow. I find the use of actual 3-lane highways as off and on ramps especially confusing and hard to untangle, but the vehicles seem to have no problem finding their way through this maze, so it's definitely working out okay. We will start with the simplest one, a dead end of a highway which is connected to a city street which in turn connects to city blocks. From this highway dead end, vehicles find themselves a way to the double entrances into these city blocks which I have explained previously. Now for something far more complex, 3 city blocks, T-highway interchange with 8 highways total. You might think these are extra unnecessary paths, but even if you peer into this plate of spaghetti long enough, you won't find them. Each connection has a purpose from start to end point. This one here is simpler, but it has more traffic coming through it, so you can notice all the paths vehicles take, and for the most part, they do not even block each other's lane, which is just brilliant. Over here we have another doozy, a full double highway interchange with lots of access roads and highways. Interestingly enough, this is actually easier to follow and understand than the one before because it's more symmetrical and less spaghetti-like. The one next to it is quite similar, but with the important difference that it is connected to the oil industrial complex and has much more heavy traffic on its north side. The particular problem here is how close on and off ramps are, something to think about and something I have explained quite a few times in my videos, especially when I showcased my 3 highway design, which you can take a pic at using the link up here and in the description. The remaining interchanges are much the same. This player has come up with the design that works for his city and he has replicated it in other places, and this is something I would personally advise. Do not overthink this. If you have a working design, know how to implement it, and if it's necessary even to customize it, keep using it at all the other locations which will require such solutions. Now I have something special for you. I have already shown you how busy these walkways can be, but now I will give you a before and after example. So here is a random place in the city where we have vehicles trying to get into a tight turn and go onto the local highway connection from a busy city street. There are hundreds of sims using the sidewalks on this street, and they of course have to cross each road which is connected to it. The fact that there is no crosswalk doesn't seem to bother them, and this is something many of you probably have happening in your cities, but you don't notice it on the micro scale, even though it is slowing down your traffic on the macro scale, especially when multiplied by the number of times this is happening across the city, and it is a domino effect on vehicles. I didn't say without reason that drivers in this game follow each rule to the letter and that traffic accidents are impossible. I just wish it was like this in the real world. But anyway, I have shown you what the problem is, and now let me show you this player's solution. It is raised walkways. You can see how Sims now use the raised walkways even with the previous crosswalks still being there and being the shorter route. This is one of those moments when your trust in the Sims' better choices is restored. You can clearly see them fast walking in a straight line and then stopping in the exact same spot to turn and climb up the walkways. And you know what? The funny thing I just realized is that these things don't come with stairs. How the hell would the elderly folk with their canes climb up a 45-degree incline? And even better, can you imagine this in winter covered with snow and ice underneath? Calling all units, 300 broken hips at Raymond Murray and Travis Street. Bring everyone! Alright, enough monkeying around. Let's take a look at one of the most interesting features of the city. It is its road and highway system on its oil specialized industry district. It's divided in two, one with storage tanks and the other with processors. This part here is the problematic one because of how vehicles merge from this highway onto the other highway onto the same lane, but that is not really what I wanted to talk about. This interwoven system of highways and roads is where the fun is at. Oh, and did you notice the 12 cargo train stations? This is the place where the generic industry is at, and the delivery of goods and arrival of products is what all the train cargo stations are for. But enough foreplay, let's zoom into these weaving roads. First thing that you can notice is that the highways have 4 lanes, and that the leftmost lane is the final turn lane, while the lane next to it is the one vehicles use to get into that turn lane just before their exit. The other highway, the one underneath, goes the opposite way, and it too is connected into the industrial area on the exact same road in fact. These highways are of course not in the base game, but the mass transit DLC content. The off-ramps are a bit closer than I would prefer it, but the roads that they are connected to are zoned 4x4 back to back, so that is all the room there is. So my advice for making something like this would be adding 2 or even 4 extra zones, which would lead to more spaced out ramps. On the other side of this industrial area, there is the same system, just with the opposite directions. It is quite an interesting mix of one-way highways and roads, which makes it possible to have off-ramps at the same spot to 2 different highways which go into opposite directions. You would think we should be seeing a traffic jam of colossal proportions here, but the vehicles have enough empty slots on the merge lane to join the highway traffic. What would help here is a dead-end highway ramp which would turn the outermost lane into a turn lane instead of a drive lane, and so the vehicles would use the next lane as the drive lane and keep the first one, the outermost one, clear for merging. Since I have been going on about vehicles and traffic for a while now, let's see what the Sims are doing around the city and how they are using the public transportation system. Considering this city is home to about 200,000 population and most of them have everything they want or need in the city's blocks, it is not surprising that only about 13,500 Sims use public transportation per week alongside 2,500 tourists. As for the modes of transportation, it would be almost easier to name what isn't used in this city. It has buses, trams, a metro, trains, planes, blimps and even a monorail. But the metro is definitely the most used, transporting 60% of Sims each week. The number of lines itself is quite high at 44 active ones, but they range from 0 to almost 700 riders per week, so there is room for improvement and optimization of both local and citywide metro lines. The Metro Monorail train hub is quite useful because of its mixed modes of public transportation, and you can see that it's buzzing with activity. The combination of multiple modes of transport with walkways connecting many lines offer ease of access and speed of commuting to Sims, which is what drives a lot of the usage of public transportation. What a lot of players get wrong is making isolated systems instead of combining them. A Sim will not walk miles to get onto a train ride after a bus ride. He will pull out his pocket car instead. The Blimps network is much simpler, with the lines being straight and direct from one end of the city to the other. A tourist trap if I ever saw one, helped in large part by the airport, which sees a constant stream of new visitors. There is another benefit this wide variety of public transportation lines and stations gives to the city, which isn't very obvious, but it is quite useful. It helps level up zoned buildings. Offices especially require public transportation stations nearby to reach their maximum level, but there is one key detail you might not be aware of. You can get that level boosting effect from the stations and lines alone. You do not need transport vehicles, you don't need Sims using them, you do not even need buildings like the bus depot, save to unlock the stops. So keep that in mind the next time you're just short of having enough services to level up a zoned building. If you are wondering why this city looks so much different than yours, especially if you're playing the vanilla, non-modded version of the game, then I will tell you that this player used several graphic mods and customized the settings as he liked them. Those mods are Relight, Sharp Textures, Ultimate Eye Candy, Shadow Strength Adjuster, Post-Process FX, and you can find all of them on the Steam's workshop. I hope you have enjoyed this city's overview and will come back for more like it in the future, and if you want me to do a showcase and overview of your city, send me a link after you have uploaded your city to the workshop. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!